Let me bring in Michael Arnold here. Michael's back on set with us from our TRT World Research Centre. Michael, Mevlut Çavuşoğlu said that the populist discourse in Europe he was referring to specifically is increasing, and that's leading to an increase in xenophobia and Islamophobia. But let's take populism to the United States. Possibly the ultimate expression of this movement of the past 10 years or so is Donald Trump's election as president of the most powerful country in the world. When he was addressing initially the New Zealand terror attacks, people examined his language very closely. He called it an event. When a brown person perpetrates an attack, as has happened in Christchurch, Donald Trump's very quick to use the word terrorism. Does he understand the importance of the language he's using?
I would imagine he very much does, and I think using this type of language is a very particular tactic, playing to let's say elements of his base in the United States that not only more on the fringes, of course, of the sort of the white nationalist and white supremacist, but also some of the more evangelical Christian conservative elements who over the years have been bombarded with anti-Islamic and Islamophobic rhetoric and have come to see Muslims as a whole as being potentially a threat or potentially dangerous to the fabric of the country. So I think it's very clear and very specific and deliberate when he uses these type of words.
The reason I'm talking about Donald Trump with you is because obviously in many cases, the United States sets the standard for the world. When the gunman's manifesto was made public, part of it talked about an invasion of Islam, an invasion of Muslims. And then Donald Trump again spoke about what happened in New Zealand. And he referred back to the security situation as he sees it in the United States, talking about the southern border with Mexico. And he said people don't like to hear it, but yes, it is an invasion. In the past few months, he's talked, and his administration has talked about Middle Eastern-looking people coming in from that southern border. And he was tweeting about prayer rugs being found at that border. He didn't seem to understand that actually Latinos who are coming from the south, they're bringing those rugs with them to put them over a barbed wire fence so that they don't tear their hands and their skin as they try to jump illegally without documentation into the United States. Again, there's something that seems to be coming from Donald Trump, which could be emboldening many people around the world who have their own particular nasty agenda, whether that's politicians or individuals like the man in New Zealand, the Australian citizen who's killed 50 people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think this is very much the case. We've seen a number of white supremacists praise Donald Trump for quote-unquote, bringing the concerns of the white race, whatever that exactly means, back to the front of politics in the United States, and as you said, around the world. I think notions of bringing up, that they found prayer rugs and this type of thing really zeroes in on this point that Muslims as a whole are taken to be potentially a threat, is that there's something inherent within them, especially those, let's say, who are more practicing and are maybe not viewed to be good liberals, of representing a threat to the fabric of these societies. I mean, it's quite a delirious discourse, but it seems to have spread and has become very much part of the mainstream, particularly on the right wing in Europe, as the foreign minister was talking about, but also in the United States, in Australia, even now in places like Canada, and you see places like New Zealand, which are traditionally, of course, held up to be more tolerant, apparently, than some of these other places. So, I mean, there's a huge impact to have the President of the United States making these types of statements. They're not new, but coming from the highest office in the land there, it's very dangerous.
What do you make of the New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern's desire for an international anti-racism campaign? You can affect certain people with campaigns, but can you affect the most radical, the ones who are intent on committing such atrocities? Can it really make a difference to those kind of people?
I think that's probably a case-by-case basis. I mean, we've seen a number of cases where former white supremacists, former extremists are sort of quote-unquote reformed. However, I think that's not really the target here. Having a global anti-racism discourse or summit is really, I think, geared towards establishing these ideas within the mainstream discourse and within the mainstream populace, to the point that the extremists and their rhetoric can be even further marginalized to the point where their talking points are no longer taken seriously. I mean, again, we have to remember here that of course, the perpetrating violence, it's condemned by everybody. You even have people who identify as white supremacists who are out saying, I condemn the attacks in New Zealand, but so on and so forth, right? So I think this type of anti-racism movement, it's really, really key. And I think it's really, really key to tie this to security efforts and anti-terrorism efforts to really bring home this point that terrorism, violence done in the name of ideology and politics, has no religion, it has no culture. These are extremists, wherever they may be coming from, and it's not tied to Islam, it's not tied to Christianity, it's not tied to Judaism, and that point, especially today, needs to really be driven home.
You were talking earlier about neoliberalism and Francis Fukuyama's theory that it's the end of history because everybody's understood that neoliberalism is the way to be. Now, let's try to draw a link here between the globalization that has come through economic theory and the effect that that's had on countries who are closing themselves off from the rest of the world. This rise of populism, it's about us, whoever the us is, X country. It's about us first and everything else is secondary. We don't need to have the globalization that comes with expanding economies that then lead to naturally a freedom of movement of people. Because if economies are going to be open, then surely borders are going to be open as well, and people are going to move around the world. And yet there seems to be now a division between those two ideas, and the nationalism is creating more of an us against them philosophy. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think we definitely see this as a rising phenomenon. It's really unfortunate because I think in a lot of these societies where you've had increasingly undemocratic institutions take the lead in making policy, whether they be large multinational corporations, non-governmental organizations and bodies, where there are legitimate issues to gripe with here. However, it's been hijacked by Islamophobic, by those with xenophobic agendas, and they have played to the fears, and I think sometimes legitimate fears of many populations all over the world of being sort of left behind by this increasing gap between rich and poor. However, I think it's good to have people like the New Zealand Prime Minister saying, look, what we need to talk about here is anti-racism, because we're actually, at the end of the day, regular people, we're all in this together. And we need to find a way to come together that, allows obviously for economic development, allows for the movement of people, but at the same time addresses the concerns of the everyday person.
Okay, Michael, thanks for ending your thought there, because at that conference that we've been covering that's taking place here in Istanbul, I believe New Zealand's Foreign Minister Winston Peters is about to speak.